deep dive. You've handed us it's just a fascinating stack of sources here. I mean, research, notes, what look like philosophical texts. And our mission today is to really get to the core of one of the most complex and frankly chilling figures we've ever profiled.
You're the big one.
It is. We are diving deep into the figure known by two, completely terrifying and contradictory titles, the Sapphire Jester and the Redeemed Judge.
It's a remarkable profile, and the sources, they make it clear from the very beginning that this isn't really a character in the traditional sense. It's more of a metaphysical strategy. Yeah. Our sources call him a paradoxical archetype, and I think our goal today has to be understanding the precise mechanics of that paradox. This fusion of nihilistic mockery and absolute judgment.
Right.
He's the emotional and really the intellectual nexus of the entire power structure he serves, which the text, as you said, they call the grand architecture.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately, because that tension you mentioned, the one between Jester and Judge, that feels like the absolute key to understanding how he works. How can you be the ultimate joker, mocking everything, and at the same time be the ultimate law?
That is the core philosophical puzzle, isn't it? The Jester half. That's the figure of cosmic ridicule. He looks at your existence, your struggles, your hopes, your unique identity, everything you hold dear, and he declares the whole thing a grotesque joke.
So he's an active nihilist.
A profoundly active one. He's not just passively saying nothing matters. He's actively asserting that consciousness itself is a meaningless accident and that all of our suffering is, well, it's just the punchline.
But then, and this is the crux of it, if nothing matters, how can he possibly render a judgment? The sources are so clear. He is the redeemed judge, the enforcer of an immutable, annihilating verdict.
Right.
He's not judging good versus evil. What he measures, according to our material, is strictly binary. He measures being against non-being.
And crucially, he invariably rules in favor of non-being.
Every time.
Every single time. And this is where the paradox becomes the system's twisted genius. The jester ensures that the victim is psychologically prepared, even willing, to accept the verdict of the judge.
How so?
Well, think about it. If everything truly is meaningless, if your life is just a joke, then annihilation isn't a tragedy.
It's just the end of the joke.
It's the logical conclusion, the final permanent silence. It's presented as a release.
So his redemption isn't spiritual salvation in our sense of the word. His redemption is his transformation into the perfect instrument of erasure.
Precisely.
This entire profile, then, it's critical to grasping the theological and philosophical underpinnings of the whole system?
Absolutely. The grand architecture, as it's defined in these texts, explicitly seeks to dismantle individuality in service of a corrupt, unified whole. The jester is the rhetorical weapon they use to make that dismantling look, feel, and even sound like salvation.
He's the guy who convinces you that losing yourself is the highest possible form of gain.
Yes, the ultimate con man of the soul.
And the sources provide such, just disturbing, vivid aesthetics that really capture this duality. His physical presence is designed to be just chillingly contradictory.
Look at the descriptions of his appearance. Let's start there. His robes are a cold, shimmering blue that seem to absorb the very idea of light.
That detail is fascinating. It's not just that they're dark clothes, it's that they actively absorb the concept of illumination.
Exactly. If you think of light as knowledge or truth or the spark of individual enlightenment, then the jester's very being is an active rejection of it. He doesn't just lack enlightenment. The sources suggest he metabolizes it. He consumes it.
Okay, wow. And then there's the sound he makes. A jester should laugh playfully, but his laugh, it echoed through the silent city like the grinding of tectonic plates.
That image is so profound. Tectonic plates grinding. It suggests this deep, foundational, earth-shattering inevitability.
It's not a sound of mischief.
No, not at all. It's the sound of the universe reshaping itself, grinding individuality down into this uniform, featureless dust. It tells you that the destruction he represents is essential and, maybe worst of all, completely unavoidable.
He is, as the sources state, the master of ceremonies for the end of the self.
A perfect summary.
And to understand how someone becomes this master of ceremonies for oblivion, we have to look at the psychological foundation the system exploits. This brings us to the ideology of consumption, the grand architecture itself, and its origin problem.
The striver.
Yes, the striver. The striver is the initial human condition that the entire system promises to alleviate. And the sources define this condition so perfectly. They say the striver is trapped by what they call agonizing friction. We really need to spend some time on this concept because it is the key to the entire operation.
Okay, tell us more about this friction. It's defined by this conflict between what the striver possesses internally, which is a spark of reason and a memory of love, and then the external reality of a universe designed explicitly as a trap defined by scarcity. All right, just think about that contradiction for a second. Internally, reason tells the striver that they are unique, that they're capable of solving problems, that they're worthy of seeking meaning. And love provides a tangible connection and a value to that unique existence.
So, the things we value most.
The things we see as the height of our being. Yet the external world, the cosmos of the grand architecture, is this closed system of scarcity and constant struggle. So every time the striver tries to apply their reason to solve a problem, or use their love to build a lasting connection, the external reality just grinds against those impulses. It creates constant, agonizing pain.
So the very qualities that we traditionally would view as heroic reason, love, individuality are, in this inverted cosmology, the source of perpetual suffering.
They are the traits that guarantee unhappiness in what is presented as a fundamentally hostile and limited environment.
And that leads to this concept of the terror of being.
Exactly. This friction inevitably leads to the terror of being. The unbearable weight of self-awareness. It's that dawning horror. The moment the striver realizes, I am a unique, self-aware entity with an infinite capacity for feeling, and I am trapped in a finite world that actively punishes me for my selfhood. This awareness, this knowledge of the self, that is the aberration.
And the sources argue that this is the primary motivational engine for the Jester's entire path. The striver's goal isn't self-actualization, it's the opposite. It's this deep, profound desire to be unmade.
They're seeking relief from the pain of existing as a self.
That's a terrifying thought.
It is, and that desire to be unmade is the psychological condition the grand architecture capitalizes on. It doesn't need to defeat people in a war. It only needs to convince them that their suffering is proof that they shouldn't exist in the first place. The system doesn't offer salvation. It offers elegant philosophical oblivion.
This brings us directly to the doctrine, then. If the striver's individuality is the source of all this suffering, then the grand architecture, which was established by this figure Socrates the Fool, must view that individuality as an error.
It's the ultimate critique of existence itself. I mean, in the view of Socrates the Fool, unique identity is a sleeting error. It's a bug in the system that disrupts what he calls the perfect silence of the whole.
So consciousness.
Yeah.
All our hopes, our fears, our attachments, the chaos of choice, that's all just a glitch.
It's a source of suffering, and therefore it's a glitch that has to be resolved. And the jester's function is to be the one who carries out that resolution. He's the ultimate debugger for this system.
It's a kind of anti-theological hamartiology, the study of sin or error, where the sin is simply being conscious.
Yes.
And the jester internalizes this so completely that when he returns, he uses this exact language to dismiss a victim's entire life. He calls their loves and memories bugs, errors interrupting the smooth hunger of the void.
That shift in language is absolutely key. It reduces these profound concepts like love and memory into, technical malfunctions. A bug is something you squash. It's not something you mourn. And this prepares us for maybe the most terrifying reductionist concept in all the sources. Lich and the Gospel of the Belly.
I really want to spend some time here because Lich seems to be the economic engine of this whole horrible system. Our sources define Lich as the spiritual energy generated by unique identities.
And this moves the entire discussion beyond just philosophy and into a kind of metaphysics of consumption. Lich is the spiritual fuel that's required to sustain what the texts call the monstrous, bottomless greed of the master.
So the grand architecture sees existence entirely as a metabolic process.
Entirely.
Okay, but wait a second. If the grand architecture values this perfect silence, why does it need to metabolize individual spiritual energy? I mean, wouldn't silence just be achieved through simple non-existence? Why is consciousness required as a resource before it's eliminated?
That is a brilliant question, and the sources hint at a really terrifying answer. The master's system, it isn't self-sustaining. The perfect silence it achieves is for the individual, yes, but the system itself runs on the input of conscious experience.
So our suffering is, what? Fuel.
Precisely. The pain, the reason, the love, that agonizing friction we talked about, that is exactly what generates the high-energy spiritual fuel. Simple destruction wouldn't feed the engine. The deliberate, conscious surrender of that energy is required for its transmutation into Lich.
So life isn't a story. It's a resource to be metabolized.
You've got it. The striver's suffering isn't just collateral damage, it is the raw material. The grand architecture is a cosmic digestive system, and consciousness is the calorie count.
That is a horrifying concept because it just strips away every single layer of human meaning.
It's the ultimate reductionism. Your life, your deepest tragedy, your greatest joy. It is all just complex potential energy waiting to be converted into a uniform, utilizable fuel unit. And the Jester's inverted journey is the protocol for how that complex energy source, the striver, is prepared for consumption.
Okay, let's move into that journey then. If the striver's agony provides the motivation, and the architecture provides the philosophical justification, the Jester's transformation provides the protocol for achieving what the text called perfected nullity. This is the inverted hero's journey.
Right, and unlike the traditional monomyth, where the hero ascends and finds a boon to bring back to the world, the Jester undertakes a deliberate and structured descent into the new nihilism. His journey is a training regimen for extinction.
It's not about becoming more, it's about becoming less.
It's about becoming nothing, perfectly, all in order to serve this corrupt but unified state.
He answers the call not to adventure, but to absence. He chooses to abandon his selfhood, and his crossing the threshold is very specific. He enters the Silent City.
The Silent City is a critical concept here. It's defined as the metaphysical location, where the light of individuality is extinguished forever. It is the architectural representation of the grand architecture's ultimate goal.
So when the striver crosses into it, it's not a leap of faith, it's a willful abandonment of self.
He isn't being dragged, he is choosing oblivion because the terror of being has become too great to bear. He's running away from himself.
And once he's inside, the systematic erasure begins. The striver is guided by a trinity of inverted archetypes, all of them dedicated to what the sources call spiritual sabotage.
It's his initiation, which is specifically defined as a narrative protocol for dehumanization.
A protocol, so it's a step-by-step process.
It's a three-part process that dismantles the striver's reason, his love, and his connection to material reality, all to prepare him for the furnace.
Okay, let's look at the first one, the mentor figure, the Pale Redeemer. He's called the patron saint of the herd.
This figure is so crucial. A true mentor, guides you toward the full expression of yourself. The Pale Redeemer offers a false cure force conversion. This mentorship isn't about learning to be free. It's about absolute indoctrination into the idea that not being an individual is the only way to escape pain.
And the method is called striving deconstruction. That sounds clinical and terrible.
It is. It's the systematic unraveling of the self. They usually do it by taking the striver's most painful, unique memories and showing him how those memories only caused pain because he was separate, because he was an individual.
So they use your own life against you.
They weaponize your trauma. The core lesson, driven home relentlessly, is that true peace is found only in being absorbed back into the greater singular entity. They exploit the very trauma of unique existence to sell the safety of the collective void.
And there's a physical act tied to this conversion, the crown of roses. The sources say its thorns wrap around the physical heart to seal the mark of the anti-god. That's a powerful, horrible symbolic act.
It's a literal subjugation of the striver's emotional core, the heart, the source of love and passion. It has to be physically constrained and marked. The pain of the thorns acts as this constant physical reminder that the feelings that once defined the striver must now be suppressed in service of the grand architecture.
The conversion is sealed by pain.
To prevent any future flicker of independent feeling.
Okay, so that handles the emotional core. Next, we move to the intellectual dismantling. This is the ally of lies, the whispering seraph, dedicated to spiritual sabotage. Its function is to prevent relapse.
Exactly. Even after the Redeemer's work, residual phantom sensations of the striver's former life might emerge. A memory of joy, a feeling of responsibility, a question of morality. The seraph's job is to instantly neutralize those moments of existential doubt.
And the form it takes is equally symbolic, a black and white phoenix. A phoenix should symbolize rebirth and return, but this one is monochromatic and it only speaks lies.
It's a perfect inversion of the symbol of renewal. It whispers these doctrines of subjectivity and moral relativism. This is a very deep form of psychological warfare. The seraph doesn't tell the striver he's wrong. It tells him that the very mechanism he uses to determine right and wrong, his independent moral reasoning, is fundamentally meaningless.
So it's weaponized post-truth. If all truth is relative, then the only reliable truth is the absolute structure provided by the grand architecture.
That is its rhetorical triumph. The seraph convinces the striver that his independent thoughts, his moral worries, or his pangs of love are just static on a screen, just noise interrupting the clear signal of the unified state. And what's more, the seraph reframes the choice for totalitarian bondage, not as submission, but as a divine revelation.
That lie is so effective because it promises certainty. When the weight of moral choice and free will becomes too heavy, that terror of being, surrendering that critical function for a revealed truth, no matter how oppressive, must feel like clarity.
It's the ultimate defense mechanism for the system. It convinces the individual that their own mind is the source of chaos, which justifies the total surrender of that mind to the anti-God.
Okay, so once the heart is subdued by the Redeemer and the mind is neutralized by the Seraph, the body and spirit have to be initiated into the material reality of the grand architecture.
And that's the third figure, the ally of hunger, the all-consuming maw, which reveals the truth of the stomach.
The practical one.
The practical executor, yes. It initiates the striver directly into the gospel of the belly. Its function is to provide the visceral, undeniable proof that all life, all spiritual energy is just lush destined for consumption. Theory has to become visible reality.
And it does this through the furnace of rebirth. The striver witnesses the metabolization of identity firsthand.
This is a horrific, but from their point of view, necessary initiation step. Watching others, or maybe just projections of others, be stripped of their uniqueness and converted into raw energy. It convinces the striver that this process isn't malevolent destruction.
It's just mechanics.
It's a necessary corrective force. It normalizes consumption. If existence is suffering, then consumption is simply the necessary end to that suffering, and it benefits the greater whole.
He needs to accept his destiny as fuel before he can become the one who gathers the fuel.
Exactly.
And this whole protocol, it culminates in the abyss and his final transformation.
Yes, the journey's final stage. The striver is cast into the abyss, which is the furnace itself, the point of total annihilation. This is the moment where the last final vestiges of the unique self are just burned away.
The sources make a big point of saying this is not a traditional rebirth. He is not reborn as a new man. He is recreated as a mindless duplicate in the image of the anti-God.
The self is not elevated. It's not even replaced by a new identity. It's standardized. He transitions from a living, striving person into a function, a uniform building block in the architect's palace. This is how he achieved the perfected nullity he was looking for.
He has escaped the terror of being unique.
By becoming perfectly non-unique.
And he emerges as the redeemed judge. His apotheosis is the final loss of his unique selfhood, and it's visually confirmed by the constant chilling presence of his sapphire robes.
And we're back to the robes. They literally absorb the very idea of light, confirming his complete rejection of his former reason, his love, his independent thought. He is the ultimate anti-self, a perfectly honed instrument ready to perform his duty.
Which is to sell the same perfected nullity he achieved to others.
Now you see the full cycle.
Okay, that journey lays all the philosophical and psychological groundwork. Now we have to examine the purpose of his return to the Silent City, the verdict. He comes back, but not with a boon for humanity. He returns with a sentence, the verdict of the Sapphire Jester.
And this is the moment where the rhetorical power of this archetype is fully deployed. He stands upon a pedestal of gray stone. The sources detail that his court operates under an inverted system of anti-theology. Justice is completely redefined.
The indictment itself is terrifying in its simplicity. The only charge was having been...
just that.
existing. The crime is existence itself. Separate, unique existence in defiance of the unified whole.
And his core tactic here is not coercion or force. It's the sermon of mockery. He weaponizes the lingering hope, the last shreds of self-preservation that are left in those standing before him. He attacks their remaining belief in their own significance.
He mocks those who still cling to their names. He doesn't ignore their memories and loves. He holds them up as exhibits against them.
Yes, only to dismiss them with that chilling jargon we discussed earlier. Bugs, errors interrupting the smooth hunger of the void.
By using that technical language, he devalues the most profound human experience. He's suggesting, your love for your child, that was just a system error. Your ambition to create art, a glitch in the system's smooth operation.
By making them sound like mistakes that need to be deleted, he makes erasure sound necessary and clean.
This analysis gives us two incredible quotes from the sources that just distill his judgment into this philosophical certainty. The first one is, "You still fear being nothing, that is your last superstition."
That is the ultimate philosophical maneuver. It's brilliant in its cruelty. It equates the will to live, self-preservation, with the irrationality.
Like believing in ghosts.
Exactly. The jester is arguing that everything the striver feared about non-being, the emptiness, the loss, the void, is actually the only reliable reality. The only thing preventing their peace is this outdated superstitious belief that their unique life matters.
Yeah.
By abandoning that superstition, they can embrace the logical, pain-free outcome of annihilation.
And the second quote brings us back to the material reality of the grand architecture. It ties his verdict to the economic engine of the system. He says, "You call this a self, but the stomach calls it fuel."
Oof. That quote is the final, brutal reduction of identity to Lutch. All the complex philosophical discussions about morality, purpose, and destiny, they're instantly reduced to a biological, metabolic certainty.
If you are fuel, you are destined to be burned.
And the jester acts as the voice of the cosmic stomach, simply declaring the true purpose of the accused.
The sources really emphasize that the jester's true power isn't his judgment, but his rhetoric, his ability to engineer consent for annihilation. How? How does he convince people to embrace their own destruction?
He achieves this through reframing. He proclaims, "To be consumed is not punishment, it is correction." This is a monumental shift in perspective. If existence is defined by that agonizing friction, then the end of existence is the ultimate correction of that pain.
He makes the system sound inherently benevolent and the individual inherently flawed.
He doesn't offer them power. He offers them the blissful lack of responsibility. He convinces the audience that the weight of freedom was too heavy.
The burden of consciousness.
The burden of consciousness, of choice, of striving against scarcity, all of that is framed as an intolerable burden. And the jester offers to lift that weight forever. This speaks to a terrifying observation about totalitarian appeal. When life is unbearable, the absolute surrender of choice feels like the highest form of release.
The source material encapsulates this psychological triumph so perfectly, it says. They asked for chains and called them clarity. They asked for erasure and called it peace.
That single sentence is the summary of the jester's success. He provides a moral framework where self-annihilation isn't failure, it's a logical triumph. The individual, exhausted by their own struggle, actively chooses the structure and certainty of oblivion over the chaos of selfhood.
And once that consent is achieved, or once all rhetorical resistance has just been pulverized, the process concludes with the final execution.
The all-consuming maw descends, carrying out the sentence without appeal. The jester's role is complete. He's ensured that the higher plan remains a recurring harvest. He is the efficient harvester who prepares the souls for collection.
And the outcome is total efficient reduction. Unique stories are ground into uniform ash. Lives are converted into lutch. The beautiful complexity of personhood is converted into simple utility.
The summary from the text is just so clinical and precise. Names became data. Lives became lutch. The living, breathing individual is converted into data points and energy units, perfectly suitable for fueling the master's perpetual hunger. The individual is dissolved into the system.
And in the aftermath, the jester stands alone at dawn, his sapphire robes pulsing with the stolen vitality of the crowd.
His physical state confirms his functional purpose. He's a conduit. He's an agent who is powered directly by the energy he helps generate and harvest. He's the ultimate self-sustaining executioner, literally feeding off the surrender he facilitates.
That brings us to our synthesis then, bringing the paradox of the jester and the judge into sharp focus. So if we had to boil it all down, what is the ultimate function of this mythological profile?
I think the final definition from the sources is the most profound. The Sapphire Jester is the voice that makes oblivion sound like salvation, and the reason that makes bondage feel like freedom. He personifies that exact chilling moment when an individual chooses not just to be victimized by an oppressive power, but to become an instrument of that power.
Actively validating it.
And selling their own erasure to others.
Let's deepen this understanding by revisiting that first major analogy you pulled from the sources. The jester as the comedian performing for a starving audience.
This analogy is a perfect encapsulation of the psychological manipulation at play. The audience is the striver, right? They're suffering the internal friction and the external scarcity. They're hungry for relief, for meaning, for an end to the terror of being.
But the jester doesn't bring them food. He doesn't offer a solution to their hunger.
No. He uses his mockery and his judgment to convince them that the only reason they're hungry is because they are, in fact, the meal.
He convinces them that their very hunger means they are the meal themselves.
Right, and therefore the most just thing they can do is to jump into the oven. This just perfectly emphasizes his functions as a psychological weapon. He transforms suffering into proof of a twisted purpose. The pain of existence is used to persuade the sufferers that self-destruction is the only logical and just course of action.
That is a powerful message for, for you listening to internalize. It's not just about overcoming obstacles. It's about recognizing when suffering is being weaponized against the impulse toward freedom.
Absolutely. The jester takes the natural human response to pain, which is seeking an end to it, and he redirects that energy entirely into feeding the very system that caused the pain in the first place.
And finally, let's look at the second major analogy, the sculptor's masterpiece in reverse, to conclude this terrifying descent into nullity and standardization.
This analogy moves us from the psychological to the structural. The system's agents, they don't sculpt unique identities. They take a living person and they melt them down into a liquid slurry, and then they pour that slurry into a square mold to create an identical brick.
So the entire process is designed to eliminate the possibility of unique creation forever.
Total standardization.
The redeemed judge, the jester, he achieved his goal. He became that perfected nullity, that identical brick. But the sources give us one last chilling detail about his status within the grand architecture.
He is not just an anonymous brick hidden deep in the wall. The source material states he is the one who is honored by being placed at the very top of the wall to help the mason push the next person into the bucket.
And there it is. His reward for total surrender isn't peace or rest. It is active complicity. He becomes a participant in the destruction of everyone who follows him.
Exactly. He is given status and purpose, the purpose of being an overseer, only insofar as he ensures the continuation of the very system that erased his unique life. He transforms from the victim of self-annihilation into the chief facilitator and recruiter for corporate annihilation.
The peace he found is conditional.
It's conditional upon him ensuring no one else finds freedom.
So what does this complex, terrifying narrative of the Sapphire Jester, the redeemed judge, what does it ultimately teach us about ideological warfare and existential choice?
I think this narrative teaches that the ultimate danger is not merely being consumed by an oppressive system, it's willingly becoming the tool, the judge, the jester, that convinces others to embrace their own consumption. The system doesn't just need passive victims. It needs active, enthusiastic recruiters for oblivion who can speak with the authority of someone who has already been erased.
The jester found peace, not by discovering who he was, but by ensuring no one else ever could. That is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with today. The chilling irony that sometimes the ultimate surrender is presented as the greatest victory.
And the success of the jester proves just how effectively self-annihilation can be marketed as a necessary correction. It provides a path to ultimate clarity by dissolving the pain of consciousness itself.
Thank you for sharing these incredibly dense and fascinating sources with us, and for allowing us to take this deep dive into a figure that embodies the ultimate paradox of spiritual surrender.
Thank you for joining us.
We'll catch you next time.